it's often the woman who needs to sacrifice herself in order for that to happen. And when I say sacrifice, I'm really talking about giving up what she loves, giving up what she wants, giving up her dreams, her desires, to meet the needs of the family and to meet the needs of her partner.
Welcome everybody to Raw and Real with Sonia and Julie. Today our topic is about women not allowing to have what they want. And before we go on to, I just want to explain to any new listeners of our podcast, Sonia and I meet up 15 minutes before this conversation and we pick a topic and we speak from our heart, hence why it's raw and it's real. There's no fluff, there's no filters. It's not scripted. It's just coming from our wisdom and from our heart and from our experiences. And we're really honored to be able to share these conversations with you. And we hope that it really serves you to feel not alone and to feel like, yes, everybody out there, women in particular, do feel like this. And yeah, we're here to support you. So just wanted to have that little introduction. And so today, women not allowing to have what they want. It's a huge topic. You know, times have changed. We are progressing. Women are allowed to have what they want. And we feel like we're allowed to have what we want more than, you know, say 20, 30 years ago. And this is going to be a real raw conversation with Sonia as she goes through her marriage separation. And what has been coming up for you as we've spoken is that you don't actually feel supported in going for what you want in the separation. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah, it is a fair assumption. So this has been a really big thing for me to people separate all the time. And I know that, and people go through this all the time. For me, it's been really difficult. I think a lot because of my upbringing and the beliefs around divorce and separation, and the beliefs around a woman and a woman's role in the family, and how a woman should be sacrificing herself in the family. And when she's going for something that she loves, you know, she's seen as you know, it's seen as a negative thing. She's seen as bad. So I've really, it's been confronted with all of those beliefs within myself and also in my family or in the people around me. Not everybody, but there's a lot of people around me who have very similar upbringing, similar beliefs, and just being confronted with all of that going through this process has been quite a challenge. So I thought it was a really important topic to bring up, because I'm certain I'm not the only one. And I think it's a very generational thing, and probably our generation is one of the first to really where it is accepted. I know, at least for my parents and that generation, it was very frowned upon. So my mom comes from a generation where the woman would sacrifice herself no matter what. She would go through anything essentially to support the family, support her husband and support her family. And I'm not saying any of that is good or bad, but what gets sacrificed in that is the woman's needs and what she wants. And I think our generation, the culture that I come from and the Catholic upbringing that I come from, it's the first generation where I think women are really saying, no, that's not for me. I'm not going to sacrifice my entire life for that. You know, I want to be happy too. And that's triggering a lot of beliefs and triggering a lot of beliefs, a lot of stories. And particularly I can see that in myself and the people around me as I'm going through this process. And it's certainly made it a much more challenging process.
Well, firstly, I'd like to say thank you for allowing us in and listening to your story, because you mentioned that a lot of women do go through separation. And I feel like in a way you've kind of downplayed that a little bit, because this is your story and this is what you are actually going through at the moment. And even then you're not allowing yourself to be able to say, this is what I want. It's sort of, you sort of sugarcoated it and said, I know every woman goes through it, and every woman that goes through it is having a very difficult time. So, you know, and every story is unique. So firstly, let's just recognize the hardship and the heartache that you are going through. And when you're going for what you love, it's not easy. And not to have that support around you, especially from other women, is very triggering, because it starts to make you, I'm sure that you think, oh, am I doing the right thing? Is this, you know, because people put their beliefs upon you. And so, you know, for whatever reason, people want you to stay with your husband. And that's not your story to take on. You know, if it's coming from family members or friends, or wherever it's coming from, you know, and I want to be respectful to your situation. And we have these conversations not to talk about the people in our lives, but just the experiences that we go through. Because, you know, my parents have been through experiences, and my friends have been through experiences. So, and we don't know what's going on in people's lives. So just want to make that really clear, because we do have conversations about people in our lives, and that's not, you know, what we're here for. We're here for our experiences. And so as you go forward and you feel like you're not supported, and you're getting messages from, you know, your inner circle of like, why are you actually doing this? Like, how does that make you feel? Does it make you second guess, what the hell am I doing? You know, do you want to retreat and just stay in a position in a marriage where you are not getting fulfilled? Like, why is it not okay for the woman to be able to feel fulfilled in a relationship? Why is it still, you know, women need to make a better effort, or stay in these relationships? You know, it's societal. I've experienced it. I've seen friends and family separate, and it's not easy, but I'm so proud of them. It's like, good. You know, and as I watch you, I just think, you know, this is not easy. This is not an easy thing to do. It's uprooting your life, your children's life, you know, and it's kind of always the woman's fault from what I can see. And it's like, that's not fair.
Yeah, I think you've put so much in that, and there's so much to unpack. But
Put on my little tangent.
I love your little rants. First of all, you make a really good point. It's not about the people in our lives. When we talk about this, it's not about the people, and it's, I fully acknowledge that everyone does what they can from the place that they're at, and there's no judgment on that. You know, everyone I speak of, I love. It's about the impact of those stories and beliefs, and how that impacts everyone around us. And I think that's what we're really unpacking here, is how beliefs really impact how we take action, what we speak, what we say to others. Really here, it's about this belief that women can't have what they want, and women need to sacrifice themselves in a marriage. Being brought up with that belief, and everyone around me, it doesn't necessarily mean that I believe that now or ever did, but it's a belief that's ingrained in my being, in a sense, right? To go against that is wrong. It feels wrong to go against that. And logically speaking, it's not something that I would agree with, but from something inside of me, you know, and I think these are patterns that are ingrained in us through our upbringing, that ingrained in our nervous system as such. You know, it's like we believe them, and our body reacts in a certain way physically to them. And so I think when that's what we're fighting against as such, or coming up against in this situation. And it's not just me who has them, but everyone, or well, not everyone, but a lot of people around me who have also been brought up in that same way, with that belief. And first of all, there's this belief that, you know, parents should stay together no matter what, you know, till death do us part. And we did say that it is till death do us part. But, you know, at that point in time, do you acknowledge that? Are you dying on the inside? And,
Exactly.
and is that the dying, you know, because we're not acknowledging that happening, right? Yes, we can have a physical death, but we can also have a soul death, where inside our entire being, our soul is being crushed, and that's dying. That's also dying. And so, you know, that putting that belief aside of the till death do us part, and there's also this belief that families need to stick together, that it's often the woman who needs to sacrifice herself in order for that to happen. And when I say sacrifice, I'm really talking about giving up what she loves, giving up what she wants, giving up her dreams, her desires, to meet the needs of the family and to meet the needs of her partner. And you know, even speaking about this in this day and age, I know there's some people out there who will go, well, that's, you know, that's BS. That doesn't happen anymore. But actually, there's a whole group of us in society that it is still very, very relevant for. And I know I've had clients in the past who've gone through the same thing, who even in their 50s and 60s are in an unhappy marriage and feel that ashamed to leave because of that stigma and this belief that women need to stay no matter what for the sake of the family, even though the children are adult children and off living their own lives. They still have that belief. And so, you know, I think it's an important topic to unpack, because not just because I'm going through it, I guess that just makes it very relevant for me, but that it happens. I can see it happening everywhere, all around me.
It is. I see it happening around me all the time. And thankfully, I feel like our generation is now making that change, which, and having daughters, I can see that that change is even more prevalent in them. And you know, I get confused as you were talking, not about what you're saying, I get it. For me, if I seen my children, any one of them in a relationship that was, you know, and you talked about dying internally, like that just rang such a truth bomb. Like if my children were going through that, I can't understand how I wouldn't not support them. You know, it'd be like, yeah, you need to get out. Like you have one life.
You have one life.
You have to
Correct.
be happy. And
Yeah.
we talk about this quite a lot. It's like when you go for something you want, it's not always easy. It's difficult. And you know, to bring this back to a marriage separation, it's not easy to go through what you're going through.
It's definitely not the easiest path. Like, it's the easiest path often is to stay.
Yeah. It,
Yeah.
it is. It's to stay because it's your normal, it's your comfortable. And then when
Yeah.
you have the outside forces coming into you know, talking in your ear and sort of going, you know, are you sure this is what you want? You know, why are you doing this?
Mm.
So I think it's important, you know, like in your case, when you've had that, like to be really strong. It's like, yes, this is what I want. And, you know, your perception of what you think should happen in my life is really not relevant to me.
Mm.
And that's easy to say, isn't it? You know, especially when it's coming, say, from your mother or someone close that you love. It's like it's hard because you know you're going through the death of your marriage and the separation and you've got children and you know you want their support. So you know you've also got that little twang in your heart. It's like, okay, so then they're not even supporting me either. So you must sometimes feel so alone.
Yeah, I think it can be a really lonely process. Definitely, I've felt alone through this at times where it feels like everyone is against the decision I'm making. And, you know, I've only been able to come to this decision myself, um, and stick with it because of all that sort of backlash and, you know, people sort of trying to talk me out of it. I've only been able to stick with it, I believe, because I've developed this relationship with myself where I know myself and my own inner knowing, and I know what's true for me. And this is something that I would have really struggled with in the past, is trusting myself, trusting my own, you can call it intuition, gut feeling, like really trusting that gut feeling to the point where I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know if I'm going to be financially secure. I don't know if I'm going to live alone for the rest of my life. I don't know if my children are going to support this and, be in my life or not. Ultimately, all of those decisions are so unknown. And yet to stick to it, to that decision, despite the unknown, has only been possible because I trust my gut so much. And that was not something I've ever had, like I've had in the past. Yes, you get a gut feeling. Yes, it's like, I know it's the truth, but to trust it to a point where you're stepping into this huge unknown and out of a comfort zone, because the truth is, in my situation at least, there's absolutely no animosity. No one's done anything wrong in the marriage. It's actually a really, really comfortable place to be, safe place. It felt really safe and comfortable. It's just unhappy, but very safe and comfortable. And so the reasons to step out of that, and being able to step out of that despite the shame and the guilt, so much shame and guilt, so much shame and guilt. Yeah, to be able to step out of that despite that has only come from that gut feeling.
And from an outsider looking in, people could say, like, well, in your inner circle. So why do you want to leave? You've got a good relationship, it's comfortable, your kids are happy, you've got a beautiful home. Why would you want to uproot all that? So, that's why it's not important. Well, it's really important not to take on what other people think about what you need to do, what's right for you, because they're not living it. And it's just, it's like that whole saying, the white picket fence, and the 3 children and the husband. That's not true for everybody. And it's not true for you at this moment. And, you're going forward. So people have this idea that they think they know what's going on, but they have no clue.
Yeah.
And they're not inside. They're not in your heart. They're not
They're
feeling.
not in their heart, right? Yeah. And yeah, I do want to take this opportunity to say, my husband is a really amazing person. Like, and I think in all of that, that's the hard part too. Like, sometimes it would be easier if he wasn't, but he is, and that I think through this process, and I guess we were talking about the process, not necessarily about me, but the process is, and the experience is that despite all that, like that really, that trusting yourself is just the biggest gift you can give yourself, really the biggest gift you can give yourself ever. Because that's that living in alignment is when you're trusting yourself. And that's when everything else around you is telling you something different. It's really, really hard, but it's still so important to trust yourself.
Because you're not only getting it from your inner circle, it's society as well in general. There's still that belief that you need to stay. Like, you need to stay. You need to stay for your children. You need to step it up a bit. Maybe going to take it out on a limb here. Be better for your partner. It's
Yeah. Yep.
I find in conversations that I have and with clients and stuff, they believe that they need to fix themselves, and they're the ones that have caused
Mm. Mm.
separation. And it's like, where does the partner take responsibility? Why is it up to the woman to have to cop the blame, so to speak?
Mm.
That's
Yeah, we can see that in different parts of society, is where the women, because there's that stereotype, I think, that women need to, or that belief that women need to sacrifice themselves for it. When a woman steps outside of that, then she's seen as the culprit.
yeah, she
Right?
is.
She's given the blame when, just because she's decided to do what something for herself. Yeah. And I think I see that over and over again. I've seen that in other marriages as well, where the woman has prioritized her career,
Yeah.
and whether that led to the breakdown of the marriage or not, it's not for me to say. I don't know, but that has actually been named as the reason by other people for the breakdown. Now, again, from the outside, we have no idea what happens inside a marriage, right? But it's interesting how the comments from people around that situation who really don't really know the ins and outs still goes to, well, it was her fault because she focused on her career. And why do we do that? Why do we blame women? Why do we put so much emphasis on it being the woman's fault? And it often comes from women. We do it to each other. We don't support each other, right? We put each other down, beat each other up. And yeah, I'm going to say it's I've got a whole theory about this, and I think I mentioned it before. But did you have anything do you want to add? Have you ever seen, do you see that a lot? And it doesn't even have to be about marriage. I've seen, sorry, I'll do this thing where I'll ask you a question and then I'll keep talking. And I've seen it a lot. It's got nothing to do with marriage. Even just like if you think about high school and how females are in that high school environment, putting each other down and beating each other up. It's something that women tend to do. We tend to judge so harshly each other. So yeah, I'll hand over to you now.
So for me, when you talk about that, if you're judging other women, it's a reflection on yourself.
Do you want to unpack that a bit? Because I agree. And tell what do you mean by?
If I'm going to say, honestly, I have never been one to really attack other women. And that's for my own personal beliefs and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm innocent of it, but when I have, so I'm just going to speak for myself. So when I have, it's a reflection on myself. So I may look at that woman and go, oh, look what she's wearing, or look how she looks a certain way. And that is just how I'm internally feeling. So I'm reflecting it onto other women. So, really, even though it's a horrible thing to do, it's a really good way to realize what's internally going on. Why do you need to be speaking about a woman like that? And it's really not personal on that woman, because I really think women do generally want to support other women, but when they're in that thing of not or dragging them down, it's what's going on in their life. It's making them feel better because look, I can pull the shit out of her, but really I need to look in what's going on in my life to me to want to even reflect like that because when you are happy and doing what you love and doing like that, I don't even look at what people look like. I don't their appearances, I don't judge them, and you talked about how women are criticized for wanting a career. I see that so much. And other women, often the women that are staying home and raising their children are the one that are criticizing the women that are out there having a career. Like, why is that? Is the woman at home raising her children? Does she want to be like that woman that's out there and having a career and still having her children? I don't know. Some people genuinely want to stay home and raise their children, and which is great. But if you want to go out, and so that's looked upon as women are selfish because they want to do what they love and not home with their children. But why do women have to give up what they love for the family? Because that's how I see in it in a lot of cases. So I just want to make that point. But back to why do women pick on other women for me or bring them down? It's a reflection. So reflection, deflection. That's how I see it. Because I mean, generally, if you're in your heart, you wouldn't want to speak about another person like that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. I've got a theory, which is very, I think you've kind of touched on it. Um, and I believe that we judge other people because we're judging ourselves in that. So you gave the example of the stay, it's often the stay-at-home woman who's judging the woman who's going off to, off to work. And I'll bet you that there's a part of that person or those people that want to do that as well and feel they can't. They may also want to stay at home, but there's a part of them that want to do the same. And I've seen it with this is a little story of I had a client once who was talking about another woman and judging how she was eating badly and saying, why does she wakes up in the morning and she gets to eat cake for breakfast, that kind of thing. And when we unpacked that judgment, I mean, it's a very small little judgment. It's not a big deal, right? But what's underneath that, what was underneath that is that this client of mine wanted to eat the cake for breakfast too, but wouldn't allow herself to do it, right? Or, she wouldn't allow herself to go there. So she's judging other people and saying they can't, they're not allowed to do it either. And I think that's what as women we do, right? We see other, and I've done it myself. I've seen women who are very sexual and liberated and, and have, those women that just ooze sensuality.
Yeah.
And there's part of me that admires that, but I have noticed myself judging that. And when I unpacked that for myself, it was because I would love to have oozing sensuality in that way. Like, it's beautiful. Like, I want that. I want a piece of that. and I just, I feel like it's out of my reach. And therefore I judge other women for having that, being that, and sharing themselves in that way. And so that's how I've come to unpack all of these judgments that we have of others, is really underneath all of that. You call it a mirror, and the way I explain it in sort of layman's terms is that it's actually a judgment on ourselves, that we want a part of that, or there is something in us that's triggering that we want, or that we're judging on it. We're judging ourselves.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, to sum it up, when we look at other women and we are judging, they've got something that we want and we don't have.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
And, I would like to go on to further to say it's really not personal, even though it can be nasty and horrible what people say. It really isn't. It really isn't an attack on that person, and it really isn't. It's just they've got something that we want, and we can't, or we don't allow ourselves to have it. So
or we don't allow ourselves to have it. I think that's the thing, because it's where the judgment is there, because we're saying to ourselves we can't have it.
Yeah, so we justify it and say, well, whatever we say about that person. So they've got something that we want.
Yeah.
And we won't allow ourselves to have it, so we judge them for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I guess that we can flip the other side of that is when we receive judgment, then we can know that there's, where that's coming from.
Yeah, and that's a really
good. Don't take it personally.
Yeah. So, as your marriage is breaking up and people judging you, are people looking at you and going, I wish I could leave my husband. I wish I wasn't in a loveless marriage. I wish I was in a relationship where I was loved. Do you get what I'm saying?
Like, yeah.
To relate back to that, the people that throw the judgment. And, we get judged on our conversations, and that's okay too, because, I look at it, it's like, well, this is my truth. This is what I want to do. I want to get messages out into the world. So, and I want to connect with people, and not everybody's going to like what I say, and people do judge me, But I use that tool now. It's like, okay, are you wanting to do something similar, or are you unhappy that you have to? You look at keyboard warriors, like really, it's not really a, I mean, it's an attack on the person, but you really have to look back and say, well, why do they feel they need to attack people so hard?
Mm,
And I would say 99.9% of them are really unhappy. And the person they're attacking, they want it. So that's how I look at it. And that's how, I'm human too. When people say stuff, it's like, oh God. But, I've grown a thick skin and I just go, okay, well, that's a reflection on yourself. I'm open to honest criticism, but as far as the nasty jabs and stuff like that, I just go,
yeah.
like, look at
Yeah.
yourself. What's going
Again,
on.
and that's not easy, but
It's not easy,
yeah.
but the more you do it, the easier it gets. So going forward, we are talking about separation and how difficult you feel like it is for you to have what you want without being supported by the women and people that are close to in your life. What do you say to the women or the men that are listening that feel like, yeah, I'm in this situation? And it doesn't even have to be a marriage. It could be work or wherever you're in
Mm.
a situation where, like you talked about that gut feeling or your intuition, it's not right for you, but you're just too scared or too overwhelmed to start the process of change.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds very familiar. And I think for me, the best bit of advice is first just to acknowledge that that's where you're at, and that it's okay to be in that place where you know that there is a difference, that there is something that's not aligned, and that your gut feeling's telling you to do something else, and that you're also terrified. And that's okay. That you can be terrified, and you can just acknowledge that, and it's almost coming to an acceptance that this is a scary process, and then I'd say listen. Listen to that little gut feeling, that intuition that's poking you, and take a step, whether that's just talk to someone about it or write in your journal, like just something really little, tiny even, that gives you an acknowledgement of where you're at, and that you want to move forward, that you want to listen to that gut feeling. And then you'll notice that, each day, each week, there's a little bit extra that you can do. There's a little another step that you could take, and do that step. You don't have to move mountains in a day. You can just take tiny, tiny, tiny steps to work towards it. And what I'm noticing is the more that I listen to that gut feeling, the stronger I feel in myself and more aligned I feel to who I really am. It's like there's this truth of this is me. And I think, I could only ever want that for other people, because it's such an incredible feeling of inner power.
Yeah.
When you do that, it's anything outside of you doesn't really matter. Yeah, there's less. It's like you get this perspective on everything else, that it's kind of irrelevant. That what really matters is that inside gut feeling, and following that.
Yeah. And, just to relate to that, I notice too now when I say no to things that I don't want to do, can be scary, but how you feel inside is like, yeah, I actually stood up for myself and go, no, I don't want to do that. So, you
Yes.
can take that little steps of going, no, this is not what I want. And feel that strength within yourself going, wow, I can do this. So if people are going through some sort of transition or a breakup, or in a situation they don't want to be, just even just in your own little environment, just start saying no to things that you don't want. And you'll start to feel that you can do it.
that is awesome advice. That is awesome.
Yeah, because it's not an easy journey, and to recognize that it's not going to be easy to bring up those fear and the doubt and the all those emotions that you're going to feel. It's really important to feel them as well and to acknowledge them. They're going to be there, but I'm going to be okay because, like we said before, we've had a conversation, and I've said how proud I am of you for being so strong in the situation where people are actually tearing you down a little bit. Just staying aligned to who you want to be, is so powerful. So thank you for being so raw today, because going through a marriage separation, I've never done it, but I can't imagine that would be an easy decision. So if you could sum this up for us, how do you feel now that you've made that decision and you are going through the shit and there is stuff thrown at you? How, even though you feel crappy, how do you feel inside? Like, how do you feel knowing that you're going to get through this? And, a lot of people get through it. You're going to get through it. Your kids are going to be okay. Your beautiful partner, your husband is going to be okay. And you still have that love and respect for him. How do you feel inside?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you say it in a way that it is going to be okay, and
Yeah, okay.
I assume that it is, and I believe that it is, but we ultimately don't know, and it's really about just trusting that it will all work out. And I have this beautiful mantra that I say is, everything is going to work out for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that, like, when I follow my gut, everything will work out for me, because my gut, my intuition knows. It
Yeah.
knows what is true. It knows what is best for me. And when I follow that, I know it. There's this feeling on the inside. It's like you just know that it's the right thing,
Yeah.
despite anything else out around you. And yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if everyone's going to be okay, but I trust that everything is going to work out in the end.
So
Yeah.
how would you sum up how you're feeling taking these steps? Like, does it make you feel more connected to yourself? Does it make you feel stronger, empowered?
Yeah, it does. I think that feeling of when you listen to those little, I call them those little pokes, right? Those little whispers in your mind, or those little poking, and you follow through on that. It's like you're honoring inside, you're honoring who you are, you're honoring the truth of where you're at and what you're supposed to be doing. There's like those pokes are a message, and an opportunity to connect with yourself, right? And I think every time I'm only really, I think in the span of my life, pretty much at the beginning of really listening to those poking little messages, and the more I listen, the more I block everything else out and just listen to what's going on in my own heart, and that gut feeling, that intuition that I have, the more empowered I feel, the stronger I feel, and more authentically me. Like, it's connected to me, and I'm honoring me. And I think that I'm coming to understand is true self-love.
So for all our listeners out there, if you're going through a rough time, or you're feeling like something's not, you're in a situation where you just know it doesn't feel right, just know that you can do this, that you are brave, that you are courageous, and just be kind and true to yourself.
And follow those little pokes.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, everyone. Bye.